Welcome to the Queer Love Podcast, the silly and serious shenanigans of two queer relationship coaches. I am your host, Elizabeth Cunningham.
And I'm your host, Lee Greeps.
On this podcast, we talk about how to live your best queer life with fulfilling, healthy relationships and anything else that makes your little queer heart happy. Because living your life outside of the heteronormative scripts is totally possible for you.
Each episode, we explore all things queer love from our professional perspective as relationship coaches, our own personal experiences, and as partners.
If you love our show, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter at Queer Love Relationships. You can also check out our website, www.queerloverelationships.com.
Thanks for following us and enjoy this episode.
Hello! Welcome to the Queer Love Podcast.
Woo, 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 woo. What?
It's you have such a calm woo.
Yes, I'm more of a calm type.
Oh, man.
Matches. Well situated.
I don't know. No, probably not. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening. Too many water glasses. All right. What are we talking about today?
Talking about healthy relationships 101.
Healthy. Yeah. Well, because we talk about healthy relationships all the time, but then it's like, what even is a healthy relationship? Like, what does that even mean? What are we even talking about? Like, what does that even look like? Or what should you be looking for? Like, how would you know that you are in a healthy relationship? Which is also one of the reasons why people don't know that they're in unhealthy relationships.
You just gotta take an online quiz and that will tell you.
The online quiz.
Like the BuzzFeed quizzes?
BuzzFeed quizzes, yeah. Dude, I love that. I don't know, but I used to love those.
But I feel like BuzzFeed would have a quiz for that. Are you in a healthy relationship? Answer these questions, and then you're like, oh my god, I'm in a healthy relationship.
Question 1, are you in a relationship?
It's like, yes.
Question 2, are you happy that you're in this relationship?
Yes or no? Based off of that, you are in an unhealthy relationship or a healthy relationship.
Oh my god. But there was something else that you wanted to talk about inside of healthy relationships too.
I mean, it was more of thinking like, okay, yeah, basics first was a healthy relationship, like just kind of, revisiting, because we talk about it in all these multiple parts, you know,
right? Yeah,
especially here, we'll just talk about all these little aspects of it, but it's like, what does the actual whole cake look like?
Right.
And then like in that process of like, you know, especially if you're in a current relationship and there's things as you like reflect on this of like, oh yeah, I don't really want that. Like that feels a little bit unhealthy, like an unhealthy aspect of a relationship to like create the renewal process of like, what do you want to renew like from your relationship moving forward, and what do you want to like say bye-bye to, based off of, because I think that's also one of the things, you know, for anyone as they grow and just time goes by in relationships, or like context of life changes, like you get more clear around what is a healthy dynamic for you, or what's a healthy dynamic in terms of that specific partnership and stuff. And so it's, you know, it's important to relook at things in general in relationships just to see like, yeah, does that still apply? Do we want some tweaking? Do we want to let that go? What do we want to add in? So it's like, yeah, it's like that renewal process of the healthiness of whatever. It's like pruning a tree, you know, like you want to trim off what is holding it back from growing in a healthier way.
Yeah.
And, you know, ensuring that those parts that are growing so well, they get the resources that they need by trimming off those things, right?
Yeah, what I'm hearing
We're also giving you arbor lessons.
So that you can come and trim around our house.
Finally, my degree of environmental science is coming into action.
But what I'm also hearing is being intentional as well, because I think that like we've already said, that when we talk about just quote unquote healthy relationships, it's different than saying like what are the components that make up a healthy relationship, so that you can be more intentional about it. But it's also being more intentional over time in your relationships as well, which is what you were just saying. And one of the things that we talk about on a fairly regular basis are weekly check-ins, and like that's a way to do it. But it's also just like in times where you feel like, in times of transition, in times where maybe you're coming out of like a rough patch in the relationship, or maybe you're starting a new relationship and you want to set up healthy foundations, whatever it is to you, whatever that renewal, right, is for you, whatever that looks like for you, like adding an extra layer of intentionality about like, what am I looking for? What is actually healthy for me? What isn't healthy for me? What do I want to let go of? And I think that when I think about healthy relationships, like I think about it in the case of like what's healthy for the individual, as well as like what's just healthy for relationships in general. Right. And I think because, each person and each relationship is going to be different. Like, for example, monogamous or non-monogamous, right? Like for some people, like monogamy is going to set them up for success in relationships because that's what works for them. And for some people, like being in a monogamous relationship is not healthy for them because that's not where their heart is, right? That's not what actually works for them. So when we talk about, I think I just really want to make clear that when we talk about healthy versus unhealthy relationships, there are like certain things that you can look at and look into and like check off, so to speak, but there are some things that are just like so individual to each person, that you can't say, we can't say for a fact that like monogamous relationships are healthier than, or non-monogamous relationships are healthier than. It really does come down to the individual. However, with some things like, knowing, like getting to know people's communication style, as I trip over my words, like that would be an indicator across like multiple types of relationships that you're in a healthy relationship, that the person you're in a relationship with is interested in, curious about your communication style so that they can communicate better with you. Like that would be just like overall in general, regardless of the structure of the relationship, like something that's really healthy. Right. So I just want to really point out that there are some things that are like good indicators, but there are some things that are very individual and not like quote unquote truth about relationships.
Right. I mean, that's because it is. I mean, especially just using that example of the non-monogamy versus monogamy. Like, regardless of where you lay on that, like if you're a non-monogamous person, then you look at like your friend who's in a monogamous relationship, and you're like, oh, well, that you're in an unhealthy relationship because that's holding you back from your true nature. Blah 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 blah.
Or whatever.
The other person says that too, or whatever. But it's just like, no, that's not actually. I mean, maybe that's part of it for them. Who knows? But it's like that doesn't just mean simply because they're in a monogamous relationship that it is therefore unhealthy because of human nature or something, right? And so it has those added layers to it. But I mean it's also the same reason that. However,
it is true that queer relationships are healthier than straight relationships.
Well, I didn't even say it this time.
For those of you who don't read sarcasm, that was sarcastic.
Was it? All the queers are like, no, and it's the same reason as it when it's it's funny when folks come for relationship coaching. I'm thinking in the other coaching I do online, and in that format, it's folks just come in and coming in for whatever it is. It's not necessarily that they're going to automatically be queer and or non-monogamous that they're coming to me, right? Like they could be perfectly straight.
Perfectly straight.
Where anything askew from perfect straightness terrifies them. Or that they're like, yeah, they're straight, they're monogamous, and then they want relationship coaching, and then they like look at my bio and they're like, well, I don't think you can actually help me. But it's like, no, I can help you. Like, I'm not, number one, going to force you into a queer and or non-monogamous relationship.
Not proselytizing.
Yeah, oh my God. I mean, I might be sitting here going, well, if only you were gay. No, but, you know, it's not that, right? But if they're like, I want to work on, you know, making a healthier dynamic between my partner and I, or I want to work on my communication skills, right? Like, there are foundations between, like, with healthy relationships, regardless of who's involved, how many are involved, all that kind of stuff. Like, there are those foundations, which I can totally help you with, but people just, it's hard to understand that because people are like, well, you obviously are in the unhealthy, abnormal camp over there, which some people tell me, you know, they just get in and they're like, you cannot help me because of these things. And I'm like, well, I'm not here to convince you. Go find your whatever coach. That's
right.
Great. But it is those things. But and I think too, the other component when we talk about unhealthy or healthy relationships, I know people will start to panic about like, oh no, my relationship is unhealthy, which means it's like unhealthy doesn't mean like abusive.
There is a difference between unhealthy and abusive relationships.
Right. And
yes.
you know, and there's these, you know, things maybe of a like an aspect of a relationship maybe where you know, especially with all this information always available to you, that people are like, oh my God, they gaslit me, or they invalidated my experience, or that's a red flag, therefore they're an abusive person, versus like these unhealthy tendencies or behaviors that we all have. Right. And again, I mean, we've talked about that in different episodes for sure of like, you know, the intentionality.
I feel like this episode is kind of a recap.
No, it is. I mean, it's kind of like that nice, like, it's the Spark Notes, right?
Yeah.
Of like many other episodes. But I mean, I think that's just what comes up, you know, especially in sessions I see with clients when they're like, oh no, they're unhealthy, and they start to freak out about it versus just being like, dude, I could look at your freaking diet and tell you all the unhealthy things. That doesn't mean it's like you are doomed and you are like, you can't make changes.
Right.
You can't, like, it's all those things. It's like,
you're going to die in 5 years.
Right. Like, it's like a healthy versus an unhealthy habit, right? Or behavior. Like, we have that in all these aspects of our life. And so it's just more of, okay, let's see, what is a healthy relationship for you? How far off or near are you currently to that ideal? And then what can you change to start, you know, navigating towards that? I always think about it in terms of, people can think of it with like a diet or, you know, food habits. It's just like, okay, you eat cookies all the time. Okay, well, we're just going to eat less cookies, you know, and it's like, let's add in some water, you know, let's add in some veggies and those kinds of things. So it's not like end all be all sort of situation.
Not black and white.
Yeah. And again, just making that distinction that unhealthy does not then equate to abuse.
Right.
So
yeah.
Everyone sit back down.
Just like, let's breathe. Let's breathe.
Back down. Eat your cookies.
Eat your cookies. Eat your salt and vinegar chips.
Yeah. Do you.
Oh my God. Those are my favorite. Anyways. Okay. So with all of that being said, what are some things? Oh, the other thing before we really get going is that
it's the longest preface ever.
I know, 13-minute preface. Well, the thing that I was going to ask you, not right now, but I'm just like titillating this question, is what...
Anytime titillating comes up, I see cow udders. Yes, cow udders.
Indeed. What does make a healthy queer relationship? Like, is there a differentiation between where you would like look for specific things in queer relationships where it's just like this is unhealthy versus not healthy that you wouldn't necessarily look for in
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that too then.
Yeah, if it doesn't come up,
If it doesn't, in the Queer Love podcast, if that doesn't come up, we'll make sure to cover it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so what are some components that make up a healthy relationship?
Communication.
Say more.
No.
No. No, I will not talk about communication.
No, I will not.
You should just know.
You should. That's a component of a healthy relationship. They should just know.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, I mean, communication. Well, you already spoke to one aspect of it, right? With understanding different communication styles of folks. Also understanding your own communication style.
Yes. Starting with you.
So that you can then, share
Communicate
that with
your communication style.
Other person involved or other people involved. But it is really crucial to understand how you like to communicate, maybe things that are challenging for you to communicate about, around, different aspects of a situation that has you feel challenged to communicate, because we all have our ideal of like, oh yeah, I'm going to speak so eloquently and fluently, and oh my god, it's going to be so beautiful,
or like it's so clear in my head right now.
Yeah, people are going to be crying because it's poetic, which sometimes you can totally do that, and that's wonderful, but you also have to take into consideration in this grand scheme of communication as a whole. I mean, that's a very large umbrella to just communication. Yeah, healthy relationship. There's just these different aspects of it, which I think a lot of people will focus on. Oh yeah, I'm going to I want to improve my skills in communication, which is important. There's all kinds of frameworks, there's all kinds of books, and
I even lead a course called How to Have Difficult Conversations.
See, look, there's all kinds of courses, but there are there's these different, they're in that broader sense of like, oh look, you do this first, whatever the protocol is, you start with this, and then you do this, and you make sure to use I statements and blah 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 blah, and which is all fantastic and really important. Like, there's nothing putting that down, but people often stop there, and they go, oh. Well, look, I have this framework and I still can't communicate what's going on. And it's understanding these different layers of like what surrounds communication, in the sense of, past history around conflict, for instance, right? Like, you want to communicate in times of conflict, but all of a sudden this framework that is so beautiful in this piece of paper that you got from your course is no longer applying because it's like, I can't do that. I'm too freaked out, or they're getting too aggressive and I feel on the defense, and what's going on. And so to understand those different facets of communication for you, for your partner, for the dynamic as a whole. And so what surrounds communication, it's kind of like what swims around in those waters of communication with you, so that you can go, oh yeah, the reason I couldn't sound so poetic with my beautiful framework is because I was feeling in this state of freeze, right, in my nervous system. So then I can say Jack Daly squat because that sounded too terrifying. And so I think, just digging deeper into when you say, I want to improve upon communication, like what does that actually entail? Like what's actually going on with your communication? Because, I'll get clients who have done communication courses or workshops, or they've read, the Nonviolent Communication book, and
which is a great book.
It's a great, again, it's like all these things that are fantastic, but people go, but it's not working. I say these things, but it's not working, or like I can't get there, or my partner, blah blah blah, or whatever it is. And so it's really, what are those other things in the room with you when you are communicating? Or when you think about communicating what's going on, which the deeper understanding that you create for yourself and your partner and all that kind of stuff in that realm is going to help foster even more of a healthier dynamic, because then you're able to be with those different aspects and not be like, it didn't fall into this cookie cutter framework, dang it. Like, I always think of like Mad Libs. Like, that's how I think, like, the framework where it's like, insert feeling. I feel sad,
Yeah. Well, that's also why it's important when you are learning about communication. When you're learning about communication, to learn how to speak the language that you are trying to speak. But it's important to learn the intentions behind the framework as well. Because if you know the intentions, like if you know why you're using I statements versus just trying to use I statements, then it's easier to apply in those situations. And so that's also kind of like taking things one step deeper. Like, life is not a framework. Like, frameworks are helpful and they can help you think about things in a way that makes sense to you so that you have an easier time navigating a situation. However, if you don't understand the intention behind the framework, then like it is going to lead to like what Lee was saying, where it's like, oh, I have this framework, but I don't know how to use it. And also, again, like you were talking about, is like a layer deeper than that is, how you're feeling, or like past things that have happened that make things difficult, whether that be in the current relationship that you're in, or past relationships that make certain like situations or scenarios or types of communication really difficult for you. Right. And so, and again, this is not like, I love the analogy that you brought up earlier with like the food, right? So this is not like you're doomed, like you can't, communicate effectively. This is just like, oh, I see that, one of the things that is really hindering me in my diet is that every time I get home, I eat a bag of chips, right? And it's just like, there's nothing wrong with eating a bag of chips, but if you have a goal of like, weight loss or something like that, that's not very effective in like what you're trying to do. So it's not like what you're doing is wrong or bad, or like that you're wrong or bad, or that you're doomed or anything like that. It's just that when you can take these things apart a little bit and see the parts that are not working towards the outcome or the result that you're looking for, then you can start to shift those things.
Yeah, and that's like a different, even that is just another component under the communication umbrella is your communication about communication, right? Like, especially in long-term relationships where you have seen these different patterns play out, where you're like, oh yeah, when we bring up this specific topic, or, what happens is I say this thing, they say this thing, I start feeling this way, they start feeling that way. Like, so you start to see like how it kind of, the usual dance.
Yeah.
And so then you can talk about that like in a separate situation. Like, hey, this is what happens. This is what I see. Right. And so you can, because that then helps you to pinpoint, like, it's like the thing. Yeah. What I see is that I come home and I eat a bag of chips. That's okay. Well, right. Versus like, oh, what I see is this. I can see where we can start to tinker with things. Yeah. Which I think is that is always a thing that I see with folks when I'm like, well, have you talked about this situation? They're like, no. And I'm like, okay, you've seen it play out for 10 years. I feel like we should talk about it.
Yeah, sometimes it is like just pointing out the pattern that you see happening, right? And I also think that as we're the umbrella of this podcast is like what creates a healthy relationship. And I think one of the things that creates a healthy relationship is being able to talk about the patterns that you see in the relationship as well, and what's working or what's not working about them. And also inside of talking about things that aren't working, whether it be communication or something else. I think something else that really is an indicator of a healthy relationship is that you're able to give each other the benefit of the doubt. Like, whenever topics are brought up, or something happens or someone does something or whatever the circumstance may be, that you're able to give the other person the benefit of the doubt. Like you don't just jump into like blame or shame or defensiveness or putting them down or whatever it is, that you're able to look at the scenario and be like, okay, that scenario really didn't work. But I'm going to give my partner the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to assume that they meant well, and I'm also going to get curious about that. Like I'm not going to like put on blinders and like assume that they meant well and just like go on my merry way and just shove it under the rug. Like that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is giving them the benefit of the doubt and then allowing yourself to be curious about whatever that thing is, and then bringing it up to them. Like, hey, you did this thing on Thursday, or you said this thing, and that really threw me off, or like that brought up a lot of stuff for me, and I'm not exactly sure why you did that. Like, can you talk to me about that? Like, that's really concerning to me. Right. So I think, I mean, that falls under communication, but that also falls under just like its own category of like giving someone the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. Assuming good intent and assuming benevolence.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just thinking of a session I had this week with a client who was dealing with that. Except it did not go his way when he brought it up to his partner. Partner dug his heels in. And I was like, but then now you have more information.
But now you have more information. Yeah. And I think that, you know, as we're listing off things for healthy relationships, one of the ways that you can be healthy in a relationship is to take things as information.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that is, especially when, you know, the topic of like giving benefit of the doubt, like, I feel like that's one that, you know, can be, depending on what's happening, you know, because I think that can lead to, you know, trouble later down the line if you are, you know, putting those blinders on, or, you know, like the rose-colored glasses kind of situation. But yeah, and, you know, you give them benefit of the doubt, maybe you bring it up and then they give some response where it's not ideal. And you're like, oh, all right, well, that's information, as opposed to like, oh, I'm just going to give them benefit of the doubt again. You know, like around that. It's just more of like, okay, interesting, you know, and yeah, for sure talking about that, but it is that, yeah, situation around, and yeah, in different situations of a relationship, yeah, taking it as information of how responses are, what comes up, what they say, what they do, and like how that impacts you, and all those kinds of factors, is, yeah, going, okay, well, this is the information I have, and what do I want to do with that, right? Because I think that does lead to that, you know, especially if you're in dynamics where you're like, can this be a healthier dynamic, right? Like, can we actually do that? Is there a willingness? Are those things, you know, those are situations where you're a little bit more like focused on those details and stuff too. Yeah. But it is just being like, oh yeah, this is how this person responded. Yeah. What do I do with that?
Well, and you can also talk about that too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, that's why I was like, yeah, you can bring that up. And again, it's like, if that's still like, well, I'm like, okay, well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like you said, if they like double down on it, it's like, but you can also say that, you can also point that out too. Be like, okay, well, I brought this up and it was really concerning to me, and now I'm seeing you like double down on that, and that is, so it's still concerning to me. Like, and I don't know what to do about that, you know?
Yeah, it does show a lot with like these different responses, or maybe you get like a lackluster apology. And those things where you're like, you don't even know what you're apologizing for. Which, honestly, here's another component of a healthy relationship is, the kind of the, maybe like the repair of situations, or how someone handles hurt, conflict, those tough situations.
Yeah, and it's also on both sides. Like,
yeah, no, I mean, like, that's
yeah,
all, like,
the hurt party and the party who did the hurting.
Yeah, so it's just more of, okay, what happens in those in those situations where there's that friction, the hurt, wherever it is. And, you know, what happens moving forward? What's the willingness on all sides to do something? What does that look like? Like, again, like, is it like someone just being like, yeah, I'm sorry, I said that thing for sure, and moving on, but they don't understand actually the impact that you're trying to communicate that to them, and it's just, you know, that's just not hitting at it. Then, you know, it's like, okay, like, I hear you're sorry, love it, thank you, and that doesn't give me anything to work with in the future of like, you don't understand what actually happened, so what's telling me that it's not going to happen again?
Yeah.
And also, you know, how you are responding in those other, like, when you're on the flip side of that, right? Like, how are you changing and all those kinds of things.
Yeah. It also, that reminds me of the conflict completion triangle, which we do have an episode about. But the conflict completion triangle, when you're trying to complete a conflict, and we talk about resolving, repair, and reassurance, and that all three of those components need to be a factor inside of completing whatever that conflict is, or completing it for now. You know, in some things it's not all going to be like tied up in a pretty little bow just because you, again, follow these steps. But rather like moving forward in a way that is healthy, and in a way that is productive. And I think like how people show up in conflict is indicative of a lot of things, you know, like, especially depending on where you're at in the relationship. Like, if it's a new relationship, then it's indicative of like how they've learned how to handle conflict, like, in their life in general. But maybe if it's a longer relationship, it's how they've learned how to handle conflict with you specifically. And so there's, you know, there can be a lot of different factors in that. And again, like, there's no like black and white about this. There's also like the ability to point things out that aren't working. And then, like Lee said, like the willingness to work on those things. Like if someone does something and they're they're the one who did the hurt, and they're not willing to acknowledge the impact of that hurt, then if that's newer in the relationship, maybe you can talk about that and be like, hey, like, this is something that I saw, and like something that really was hard for me in this conflict was that you didn't acknowledge the impact on me. But if it's like, you know, this is a continuous pattern, like, you could point that out. You could point out the pattern. But sometimes at a certain point, you have to decide whether or not, like, that's information too. It's like, if this has happened multiple times over multiple years and they're not willing to change, that's information for you, and you get to decide what you want to do with that information too. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot about conflict that we could go into as far as like what a healthy relationship.
I mean, we have all those episodes about, like,
we do have a lot of episodes about conflict, and all of that. But any, like, high level, anything else that you want to say about conflict that,
I mean,
is like,
I think this is part of conflict, but it can also take us out of conflict. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna add in that it's the high level about conflict that is indicative of a healthy relationship.
Yeah. Okay. My answer fits all criteria.
Fantastic.
Well, I mean, you were hinting at it in different areas of what you were saying, but I think just calling it out is empathy. Empathy in general in a relationship, not just moments of conflict, but especially in moments of conflict, which comes into play with people's willingness to be with challenges, especially if there's, you know, hurt involved and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, empathy, and, you know, it's obviously, it's because it's going to speak to like the emotional depth that someone has, or emotional intelligence, whatever you want to call it, in touchness with emotions. That's going to show you a lot, and like in terms of show you a lot for yourself, show you a lot for the other. around, what level of empathy can be offered. And because I think I always, man, I was just talking to someone about this the other day. It was just like empathy is, I feel like it's like this dying art in relationships for a variety of reasons. But I think it's just in terms of like humans in general. But, even our therapist was like, I'm so glad I don't have to teach you guys empathy. Or like it's like, we're not like starting at,
starting at zero.
Like, yeah, it's like, obviously you can always, grow.
You can always grow and learn and go into more depths of empathy.
Is always at the top of my mind in so many situations, because it really is so like foundational for a human connection, regardless if it's a partnership or not. But like empathy is key. And I think there's, again, not going to go off on my rant, but there's a lot that I see, especially with clients, where I'm like, no, I do have to actually teach you empathy. Or like your partner is like, from what they're sharing with me in all these sessions, I'm like, obviously I'm not talking to your partner, but like the facts of that they're doing these things, I'm like, yeah, they don't really have a lot of empathy, and that's a challenge. Because if empathy is not present, or very present, like it's whispers in the relationship, then it's going to be really hard, if not impossible, to feel like understood, to feel like heard around things, or where you are being acknowledged. And again, it doesn't have to be in a moment of conflict. It can be in just everyday situations. But it's like that empathy being received from your partner, for instance, is like telling, like, hey, they see you, they understand you, like they have that curiosity, they have that attunement, and they have that like willingness to maybe be in those tough emotions where maybe they've done something that has been hurtful to you, and yet they will still empathize with where you're at, while also holding their tough emotions about the fact that they did something to hurt you, right? So it's like empathy is, it's like such a healing balm, I think, in relationships, and in small ways and in large ways. But I mean, obviously in conflict, again, for sure. But then empathy really is just its own category for like healthy relationships, I think, as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing that we've said a couple of times but haven't like bullet pointed is willingness. And the willingness to, just willingness period, like willingness to listen, willingness to work on things, willingness to look at yourself and see what's working about what you're doing and what you're not doing, or being or saying, or whatever the case may be. The willingness to like stay in conflict even when it's hard, so that you can work it out with the other person. Willingness to be held accountable, willingness to be responsible for your own actions. Like I think like similarly, not the same, but like similarly with empathy, like willingness in relationships, I think is also very much an art. And is also in different ways like challenging, especially based off of our current discourse about relationships. And like, I think that's a big topic of conversation, is like, what are you willing to put up with in relationships, and what are you not willing to put up with? And I think that is not a bad question, but I think without context, that can get out of hand.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you put up like a bullet point list of things that you're not willing to accept in relationships, then you're not considering the humanity of the people that you may be with. Because we're all flawed. We all make mistakes. Every single one of us is the person who has done the hurting. And so being willing to just be with your own humanity and be with your partner's humanity is also, I think, really key to healthy relationships as well.
Yeah.
And I think with that too, like the next thing is boundaries, because it's not just about there is a limit to your willingness. Like, yes, it's contextual, and also there is a limit to your willingness, and there needs to be a level of discernment for you around that. Like, like the example earlier of like someone doing the same hurtful pattern for years, right? Yeah. At a certain point, after that pattern has been addressed, are you still willing to be in this relationship if this pattern continues? Because based off of how it has been going and based off of their willingness / lack of willingness to change that pattern, then this is how the relationship is going to go, right? If they're not going to change the pattern that's hurtful to you, this is now how the relationship is going to go. And so are you willing to continue to stay in a relationship while this is still going on? And that truly, I'm asking that truly and authentically, because some people have a different threshold for what they're willing and not willing to do or to experience or put up with, for lack of a better way of phrasing it. And also maybe that pattern is like, it's a problem, but it's like not a huge deal. I don't know. Like, there again, it's very contextual, right?
Yeah.
But you need to be able to have the discernment for that and then create healthy boundaries around that for yourself too.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be like individual.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's plenty of things that you could look at for yourself around, why your threshold is where it is at, and all those kinds of things. But I mean, sometimes it's just like people have larger capacities for things. They're not like, oh, they're better or anything of that nature. But it's just more of like, that's just, they have more capacity for that in a relationship, and you just have more capacity for this other thing in life. And that's like, that they would be like, absolutely not. Right. It's like the thing of like,
I was just thinking about social situations for you and me.
Oh yeah. Well, I was going to do example of like, if you were like, okay, 5 miles, will you run 5 miles? Or will you row 5 miles? I'm going to be like, I will run 5 miles. Thank you. I have zero capacity to go on the rowing machine, okay, but I will run 5 miles all day long. But but it's like someone would be like, oh well, your capacity for running, oh my gosh, and it's like, yeah, but higher capacity for running and no capacity for rowing, and I'm okay with that, right? Well, versus someone else is completely different, where it's like they're like, I will not run ever, and that's fine. There's nothing, again, there's nothing right wrong, or wrong, no better moral, or worse, or anything of that nature. It's just going again with, your individual preferences and tastes. What were you going to say with social settings?
Oh, that we just have different capacities for social settings.
Oh, yeah.
And I have a way higher capacity for social settings.
I have a higher capacity when the vibe is better.
I have a higher capacity for more social settings than you. There you go.
For sure. She's like, oh, it's a social setting. For sure, let's go. And I'm like, okay, what is the social setting? Who is there? What is actually happening? What's the setup? Like, there's so many factors.
What's the lighting? What's the music? What's the activity? Like,
there's
what's
so many
the
questions
expectation?
I have to ask about all of that, because that is going to determine my capacity in terms of like, yeah, I can be there for, 4 hours or 4 minutes, and I'm okay with that. Versus her, she's like, I'm gonna be there for 4 hours regardless. What?
I do have discernment around social settings, but I have far less requirements.
It blows my mind.
Than
I'm
you
like,
do.
how can you be in this room? This is crazy. I'm like, it's like nails on a chalkboard for me, and you're just living life over there. And I'm like, how? Why? I just not the vibe.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah. It's just
the,
different.
It's the energy.
It's different. It's different, and it's always and to the point that we're making, it's like, it's not that I'm like better, or that Lee is better, although they feel that they're better. Lee's like, no, I am clearly better for having this level of discernment. But
I feel like that goes in. I'm like, just even looking at that, like, where it's like, it goes more in line with who you are, because you like to, like, you are a much more social, more extroverted type in that way, right? Where it's like, course you're gonna have a higher capacity because it goes more in line with like who you are.
Yeah, with who I am.
Right.
Yeah,
like
totally.
so you can do that versus me. Like I want more like one-on-one types or like where there's not a lot going on. Like I want that, and so that's why I have those like levels of discernment where I'm like, this is not worth my energy because it's gonna suck me dry. So
I feel like the older I get, the more discerning I am about social things. Like 10 years ago, I said yes to way more than I say yes to now. And it's still far greater than
yeah, no, I'm like, I've always
yours.
been the discerning old grandpa since I was a little child. I remember going to like things that like, you know, related to like, you know, my parents' friends or whatever it was. And I just remember going in there and I was like, I'm gonna go sit in this dark corner while y'all do this, you know, and I'm like,
and this actually brings up a point about healthy relationships as well.
always have a dark corner.
I was gonna say being accepting of like who your partner is and like what works for them and what doesn't work for them and not trying to change them, like having a level of radical acceptance for people in general, but like definitely for your partner as well, where you know, like I'm not trying to like make Lee a more social person. I do have requests sometimes. Acceptance of who people are, not trying to change them. Anything. I mean, I feel like we've gotten a lot of really good bullet points for. I mean, I feel like we could go on and on. I have a whole list, like when in the certification program, when I'm training queer relationship coaches, I have a whole list that we go through to talk about like what's an indicator of a healthy relationship, what's you know, an indicator of an unhealthy relationship. Like I have a whole document about it. So we could go on and on and on, but I think like really looking into and asking yourself the question like what makes a healthy relationship for me, and then why does that make, like, what does that actually look like? Because sometimes I ask, you know, clients this question and they're like, oh well, respect is something that makes a really healthy relationship for me. And I'm like, okay, well, what does respect mean to you? Because also anytime that we say something, you know, say a word or say like a theory or like anything like that, there's multiple different ways that people respond to that or interpret that. And so like something like respect, like, okay, you want respect in your relationship. What does that mean for you? Like, how would you feel respected if your relationship had respect present? What would that look like? What would be a telltale sign or signs for you that there's respect in your relationship? And then, like with everything, there's always layers. You know, everything's an onion, right? Or if you're a donkey, then everything's a cake. And so, like, why is that respect for you? Mm-hmm. If that happened, what would that bring you? And kind of like doing a little bit more investigation, like why? Like, why is that respect for me? And like doing a little bit deeper digging. Jeez Louise. Okay. Got it. Nailed it. Okay, so queer relationships. Let's turn our attention there. What is an indicator of a healthy queer relationship specifically?
Well, the first thing that was coming to mind for me was just around, you know, can you be quote unquote out together? Like if that's important to someone. Mm-hmm. Whereas like, you know, for me, for instance, I'm like, I can't be in something where it's like got to be closeted and like hidden away, and like that's just not healthy for me as an individual, right? So it's like that wouldn't make it a healthy dynamic for me if that's present. And chances are that's not going to be a thing in, you know, straight relationships. Like, can we be out? I don't know. Yeah. That's more of like maybe you're dating someone that people think you shouldn't. But in terms of like, yeah, just the understanding around what are folks' comfort level with being, in public or things of that nature, where it's, or like even like, affection and things of that nature that we've talked about in different podcasts. But again, it's like, again, it's not saying it's healthy or unhealthy and just the nature of it, but it's more of like contextually for you as an individual, does that work? Because like sometimes it's like, in the situation where it's actually really unsafe for you to be out with each other, like, you know, thinking in different cultures, it's like, you know what, that's actually healthy, right?
Yeah.
But in this, in terms of right here, like for us, it's like, sure, we'll get some stuff said to us here and there or whatever, but it's not like what so again,
it's not like our lives are in danger if we're like out as a couple in public,
right? Like that's why I'm like, it depends, obviously, in
Seattle anyway. There's plenty of places in the United States where that would be
that's
the
why
case.
I'm like, that's where it is. It's like, if we go travel somewhere that I'm like, actually we should well, I'm literally a walking billboard, but don't add fuel to the fire, I guess. But like those kinds of things, I mean that's just a part of queer relationships, and so being able to talk about that,
and
sort that out.
That was kind of my thing too about it, is like also just being able to have conversations about that and what people are comfortable with, and like contextually given different circumstances and scenarios, or are you with someone who's like, no, I'm going to be out no matter what, even if it is possibly unsafe, or even life-threatening, right? Like, I'm gonna be out no matter what. And so, like Lee said, like they don't look straight, like they're not straight passing at all whatsoever. So like, no matter where we go, they are a queer person. And I mean, no matter.
I love that for me.
I love that for you too. And it's also been a part of many conversations that we have had about travel or about visiting places or about, like that is an active part of our dynamic and relationship. And I think the healthy part about that is that we're able to have those conversations, right?
That was just one of the things that came up.
Yeah, definitely. And not even that you're able to have those conversations, but that you can going back to the empathy that you were talking about, like having empathy for where your partner may be at, if that's different than where you are at, and noticing where you might have shoulds around that. Like, oh, well, you should be okay to do this, or you shouldn't want to hide here, or whatever. And again, contextually, like if you're with someone who's like, I never want to be out, or like I'm not out right now, or it's going to take me a few more years or something like that. Like if that doesn't work for you, that doesn't necessarily mean that like you're an unhealthy person or unwilling or like unempathetic or anything like that. But it does mean that you probably won't have a healthy relationship dynamic with that person because they're doing something that doesn't feel good or healthy for you.
Right.
And it's not a bad thing on their part. It's just that just doesn't make a healthy dynamic.
Yeah.
Right. True. What else is an indicator of a healthy queer relationship?
There's rainbows everywhere.
You always go to Pride every single year.
Always go to Pride.
We accidentally went to Pride last year. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. Accidentally.
We did. We didn't mean
no, I know,
to.
But it's funny. It is funny. I accidentally went. Anything that you can think of?
I think along with the acceptance part is accepting your partner's queer identity. And because, your queer identity, your sexuality, your gender is fluid. And so there's a lot of queer relationships where things shift and change over time. You know, your sexuality changes, your gender changes, or it's not changed, it's just like you're just discovering these things about yourself, right? Depending on what it is. And so like as people transition, so to speak, and that's not just about gender, but as people, you know, step into the new or discovered version of themselves, to be accepting of that. And I also don't think that this might be a controversial thing to say. I'm curious what your thoughts are about this, but I don't think that the health of the relationship or the health of you or like your moral character is dependent upon you staying in that relationship. Like if for whatever reason, you know, their newly discovered like sexuality or like them stepping into like their gender identity, it is confronting for you in a way, or like that's not the dynamic that you want to be in, you know, necessarily. And that is really tricky because they are quote unquote the same person, like they have the same soul, right, that they had before, but are you still in a relationship with someone who is who it still works for you to be in a relationship with, right? And I think that is like not a light question and needs, you know, personal and relational examination, you know, because that can also go into, you know, internalized homophobia, internalized transphobia, etc. And so like not taking that question lightly at all, but just recognizing what comes up for you in these different, you know, sexual identity transitions or gender identity transitions, right? And being willing to sit with that with yourself, like being willing to go a couple of layers deeper, being willing to look at that, being willing to talk about it, being willing to like get help around it, even like whether that be through a therapist or a coach or through community or like groups that are really supportive, you know, around that as well. Like I think it's not like the sticking it out through the transition is the healthy part necessarily, but it's also how you handle, kind of like, you know, similar to conflict, right? It's like how you handle that transition is indicative of the health of that relationship as well.
Controversy.
Yeah, well, it is. It's very contextual. Yeah. You know, like there's so many scenarios and things that could be or exist or happen or come up for each individual in the relationship during any sort of transition, even outside of like sexuality and gender, right? Like any sort of transition in relationships, which there's always transitions in relationships because there's always transitions and changes as human beings, right? And so as someone goes into this next chapter of their life, that's a better way to say that. I like that better. As someone goes into like this next chapter of their life, like you really get to decide who you want to be for them, you know, moving forward, and how you want the relationship to continue to grow or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a transition into some other thing, you know, whether it's like an internal like understanding of themselves or like a, you know, transition in terms of like actual gender transition. But you know, I feel like I hear there's all kinds that's like loaded in that inquiry for yourself. You know, in that specific kind of example, but it's, you know, it's these things that bring up for other people where it's like, you know, their partner has to like they get moved to somewhere out of state, you know, for work or whatever, and they're
Right.
like their family. You know, I had a client going through this last year. Like their family was where they're at right now, and so going to this other state with their partner is completely just, and they would have to quit their job and you know, it's just like complete
Yeah.
life and like, you know, you identity crisis because you're like, I've never been here. Like, what are you talking about? Like my family, you know, all these components where you're like, does that actually work for me? Is that healthy for me to go there and be isolated, right? And you know, all those kinds of questions that can come up. But it's yeah, and then of course, I mean, I think it's you know, because that will be like, oh well, I'm a terrible partner because I said no, like you know, morally wrong, or it's, you know, if your partner transitions like their gender and you're like, am I morally wrong for not wanting to continue, right?
Right.
And it's like, okay, just look at that for yourself. You know, I think about that for myself with like, if I'm dating a woman and then later on it's like, now I want to transition, be a trans man and all this stuff. I'm like, I think about it for myself because I'm like, I don't know. I've never even been put in that situation, number
Right.
one.
Right.
And it's like, what would that even be? Like, it's like I'm not like an immediate no or anything of that nature. I'm just like, huh.
What would that be like?
What
would
that be like? Because, you know, there are obviously differences in that dynamic, but it's
Right.
like, but it is the person. And obviously, you know, things change, especially with hormones changing and stuff too. So like that does alter kind of different behaviors and things like that. So it's like, you know, there will be changes, and then it's like, okay, how is that being perceived by others? And now there's like, our dynamic is something new and what's going on. But it's like, again, I'm just like, I wonder what that would be like.
Yeah. Well, it does. It does. And it brings up a lot of questions, you know, and a lot of the people that I work with, but like, I feel like this comes up a lot in the work that I do is the questions that get asked around people, your own identity when your partner is transitioning. And again, whether that be sexuality, whether that be gender, or even like whether that be like relationship style, like, you know, you were monogamous and now you're non-monogamous, like that brings up a lot of questions for yourself as well. And I just want to normalize those questions too. Like, it's totally normal if your partner is in transition for you to question what that means about you. Mm-hmm. Right? And that doesn't necessarily mean anything about the relationship necessarily, but it's important to recognize that those questions are normal so that you can address them in a healthy way too. Again, like, I think the unhealthy thing would be to sweep things under the rug, pretend like it's not happening, just have this, you know, if you go with that thought of like, well, I would be a morally wrong person if I didn't stick with them for this, and then you just try to like, you know, force yourself to continue on out of loyalty, right? Or this moral obligation. You're doing yourself a disservice. You're also doing your partner a disservice, and you're doing the relationship a disservice for not just being real about where you are with it and addressing it in a way that feels healthy. Excuse me. Anything else? Or do you want to complete there?
I feel like it's good. We'll end on controversy.
Well, as always, we are always curious about your thoughts and what comes up for you, or any questions that you have that you might want us to answer or expand on further, whether that be, you know, one-on-one or whether that be in another episode. So please definitely send us an email, or like, this is on YouTube now. So you can also post it in the comments on our YouTube video as well. But our email is queerloverelationships@gmail.com. And so you're more than welcome to... What was that? to drop us a line.
Slide into the DMs.
Slide into the DMs. Yeah, if you I've been revamping our website, so I apologize, it's not super great right now. But you can also go to our website and contact us through there, and there's also ways to work with us on there if you're wanting specific support from one of us or from both of us. You can use our website and go and connect with us on there as well. We'd love to support you.
Do it.
Do it. And the other thing is, please like and subscribe. It's very helpful, especially for smaller content creators like us. It is very helpful if you like and subscribe this video. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. I love you.
Okay, love you.
We love you.
Love you.
Love you. Love
Love you, Charlie.
Love you. We love you, Charlie. You cute cutie.
All right. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Queer Love Podcast. We would love to hear from you. Drop us a line on TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter at Queer Love Relationships, or email us at queerloverelationships@gmail.com. If you are interested in working with us, follow the Linktree link in the show notes. See if our offers resonate with you, and if they do, sign up with us or book a discovery session. We are so grateful that you're here, listening, learning, and growing with us. Until next time, keep loving.